Welcome to Roofing Road Trips, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey across the world of roofing. From fascinating interviews with roofing experts to on-the-road adventures, we'll uncover the stories, innovations, and challenges that shape the rooftops over our heads. So fasten your seatbelts and join us as we embark on this exciting roofing road trip.
Hello and welcome to Roofing Road Trips from Roofers Coffee Shop. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and we are here today to talk about something that is so important for the roofing industry, and that is the strength of the building, the strength of the roof, and how do you get that? I have the experts here who are making roofs stronger across the country, and I can't wait for them to tell you all about it. Dale and DJ, welcome to Roofing Road Trips.
Good morning. Thank you. I feel so much smarter already.
I love it. Well, let's start with some introductions. These are the gentlemen from Roof Hugger. And DJ, let's start with you. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, good morning. My name is DJ Highnote. I'm Vice President of Roof Hugger. A little bit of back history on me. I grew up in the metal building industry. I was an erector. When I started, I came in. I'm now a certified Florida general contractor, have been since 2006. Ran a ground up construction company. And in, I believe, 2013, started working at Roof Hugger. So I think it was 13. I'm on my 14th year here in Roof Hugger. I've been the Roof Hugger is a family. So, I've known Dale my whole life. My father and Dale worked together. So I kind of grew up in this whole industry. I was actually installing roof huggers long before I was working for them.
I love it.
Anyway, that's kind of a quick rundown.
The generational families are in construction. I love it. I love it. I'm starting one of my own. So I get it.
I think once somebody starts it, it just continues. My son works for us now. So
It does. And it's good family. Okay, Dale, since you started it all, can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of history and talk about the company a little bit?
So, I came down from the Chicago area in the early 70s, 1973, and DJ's grandfather gave me my first job in Florida, which I had intended mostly to be a part-time job until I could get a real job. And it was in the design build construction industry, which I just can't tell you how I fell in love with it because there was no routine to it. Every day was chaos and great fun trying to figure out how to get buildings up and the people on the job site and the details sorted out. It was just pure excitement one day to the next. And God, I embraced it like I just can't tell you. It was just challenging, mentally stimulating, a lot of travel and all that. So great experience. And I ended up running a division and developing an industrial park with Red McConaughey, DJ's granddad. And of course, I got to know DJ's dad, who at the time was the district rep for Varco Cruton, and we became fast friends and sailing buddies. And like DJ said, this has really been a close-knit family company for many, many years. Red eventually retired from the construction business. I went into contracting with DJ's dad and doing commercial and industrial real estate. So I'm a licensed Class A contractor. I got a licensed real estate broker. And at one point had a license for mortgage brokering, and we did work in the Virgin Islands. I became a licensed Virgin Island contractor. And anyway, so I've been around the block a few times. And in the early 90s, we had to re-roof one of, actually it was the late 80s, we had to re-roof one of Red's buildings. And he didn't like the way it was done. It was typically done where you ran a half channel over the top of the high ribs of the existing panels. You screwed it down into the purlin, and one side of the half channel would go into the purlin. The other side typically would screw into the old metal panel. It was structurally not correct, but that's all we knew to do at the time. So I started to do that on Red's building, and he went out there and had a fit. Not on my building. This isn't right. So now, well, okay. So I went and saw the engineer. He explained to me it was not right and why. And so I went back to Red, and he says, well, give me a little time. Let me see what I can come up with. So he came up with the idea of this notched Z part. And we found a guy to make it for us after considerable ado, I might say. And put it on his building, and it worked like a champ, and the erector was tickled with it, and the job came out really nice. So we decided that maybe other people might need something like this too. So we agreed to start a company, and since he was mostly retired, he said, I'll tell you what, I'll try to get a patent, and you do all the work, and that'll be our deal. We'll be 50-50. I said, well, fair enough.
Let's do it.
And that's how we started. And we had sales of about $9,600 our first year. And but soon enough, word started to spread, and contractors started to learn about it. And then the next year, we were a couple 100,000. And then year after that, doubled that, and it just kept growing and growing. And we even incorporated DJ's wife in as our model for the company. So
Yeah.
We've had lot of fun over the years. Red finally passed in, I guess it was 2012, January 1st, I think, 2012. And I took over the company, in total. And then, some years later, 2016, sold out to Logan Stamping out of Logansport, Indiana. We became Roofhugger LLC at that point. And looks like we're going to be sold again now to a company called Worthington out of Cleveland, Ohio. So a lot of changes on the horizon for us, but all good and all growth, and which is what we had hoped would happen to this fledgling company when it first started. So
Wow. That's what a great story. It really kind of hits right here in the heart. That is just an awesome story, family. And so I love the fact that Red was like, don't do that to my roof. We're going to do it the right way. And ever since then, you really changed the industry, and you are still changing the industry today with all the testing you're doing, all the different, you continually to improve. So, DJ, talk a little bit about the system, right? Talk about Roof Hugger, purlin strengthening, and how this is, you guys have just, seriously, I can't say this enough. You have changed the industry on how people think and how they do this. Can you talk a little bit about the product itself and the importance of purlin strengthening?
Sure. Well, I think as Dale mentioned, before, there was really only a couple ways of doing it. People didn't know about a Notch C. But with the Notch C, what it allows is a structural connection, right? Straight down to whatever the structure is underneath, whether it's a purlin, bar joist, a deck. And I think that was the most important start, right? Is getting that solid connection. What was interesting is not only is it a Notch C, through the years, we've been able to regulate heights of the roof hugger to meet whatever our values, and can fit just about any existing roof panel out there. Even the corrugated, we have a core fit system for it. So we have all of this. We have this Nazi. We know it's doing something to the existing purlin, right? Everybody has this idea. Okay, yes, it's adding strength. But gosh, for years, up until a few years ago, nobody could figure out and truly calculate exactly what kind of strength it's adding. So again, with Roof Hugger always staying ahead of the industry and knowing that it was very important because, hey, listen, when we do a retrofit or an overlay, we're adding weight, right? We already know a lot of these existing buildings don't meet the new local loads. So, we're thinking, okay, we're adding weight. They're not meeting the loads. Many are now wanting to go solar, which, as we know, a standing seam panel is the perfect platform. So we need to figure this out. And so that's kind of where this led. But again, it all came and it all started from this notched Z, allowing a one part, member.
Then, to expand on what DJ is saying, I say not only we didn't sort of enhance the industry, we created the retrofit market that didn't exist prior to Roof Hugger. They were putting roofs over old roofs, but typically they were not done in a structurally correct way. And even if you did it in a structurally correct way with a hat over hat and put a screwed on roof on it, it was a terrible performer because hat channel over hat channel is an incredibly rigid assembly. The reason you can put a screwed on panel on a metal building is because we use a Z-shaped purlin. The Z shape will actually roll and flex with the expansion and contraction of the roof panels. Not a lot, but enough, up to about a 70-foot span or so, it'll roll enough that it doesn't tear the metal.
Which is very important, being that a screw down roof is exactly what it is. It's through fastened, where a standing seam might have a clip that would take that.
Yeah, so this was really revolutionary in a couple of ways, because it was now not only structurally correct, but it was its properties were correct for screw-down panels, which early days were primarily what we used when we re-roofed buildings. So did a whole bunch of things and really created this retrofit industry in a way that was done quite properly. The weight, as things progressed with the codes over the years, weight became an issue. The code allowed us to put up to 3 pounds, and a typical retrofit is less than 3 pounds, but many of these buildings were so finely designed that it didn't even have that much capacity, or they came inside and they added a sprinkler system, or they added equipment on the roof, or other things that took away from the capacity of those purlins. And so we had comments from erectors and people that had been installing roof huggers and ourselves when we walked on the roofs after, if it was re-roofed, the building was incredibly stiff feeling. If you go out on the typical metal building, stand in the middle of the bay between frames and jump up and down, it springs a little bit. After you put the roof hugger on, it didn't spring anymore. And we're like, something's going on here. And so the only thing we could do to document the amount of strength we were adding was to conduct a series of tests. And we did over 30 tests of various gauges, profiles, heights of parts on a specifically created test bed that was 2 bays long. We had a 50-foot long test bed. And we did testing, took weeks, and I can't even want to count the dollars anymore. But took a long time, and we collected a tremendous amount of data, at the end of which time we were able to document the amount of increased strength that we brought to the system in a credible way that the industry would accept it. Subsequent to that, we hired an engineer to create some softwares. We took all this test data, put it in, and analyzed. Not only when you look at purlin strengthening, it's not just the purlin itself, but there are connections in here. So you can say, well, we added 8 pounds per square foot of capacity, but if the lap failed at 6 pounds, you only have 6 pounds of capacity, or some other bracing thing failed. So we analyzed all of that stuff, worked it into the software. So we're not just arbitrarily saying the purlins are stronger, because there are other components that are in the system that could fail prior to that. So we've looked at that entire metal building assembly and done really an extraordinary job in identifying what kind of strength we can bring to the project and quantify it. So that is revolutionary, I think, in our.
It really is, and it all started, as Dale said, with this test bed. If you can imagine taking on this project of building a 50-foot long test bed, which is going to be a multi-span purlin, which is what a metal building is really going to be. You know, there have been simple spans where you're just going from one frame to another frame, but a real building is going to be multi-span. So it was important to do that, and not only to do multi-span, but to make these purlins. Now let's test them if they're frame mounted. Let's test them if they're on a clip on a frame. And it was amazing the difference that you get. So, you know, you go up there, you just start crushing purlins in all these different ways. And then you start adding roof huggers, the Notch Z, starting at the lowest 1.83. And I think we went all the way up to a 6-inch. And really found about a 4.5-inch tall was the optimum. So now you have, this huge data base of results from these tests. At which point, as Dale said, we created a modeling system, and it's using real live testing. I mean, it's not made up. It's true testing. So something though that's very important when we're doing this modeling and coming up with these calculations, and Dale touched on it, is the actual building and the purlins and what what is existing. We actually came up with an entire information form that tells people exactly what we need. Existing purlin cages. I mean, we're not just pulling this out of the air. And I think that that's important. And it has really, really brought us a major leap ahead because this was something that everybody needed.
Right. Right. And with the growth, when we continue to see the growth of metal buildings and the age of older buildings and the retrofits,
and the credibility of being able to actually have engineered, sealed calculations showing what we can, or believe me, some we can't, but some of it has just been amazing what we've been able to do. And it's pretty much known that the weakest part of a metal building is the purlins. They're made to deflect. So when you can strengthen that and all of a sudden allow people to throw solar on their roof, and really bring some of these up to where they should have been to begin with.
also, I mean, you said earlier too, obviously you're adding weight as you're re-roofing and going over and doing all those things, but that's also saving the landfills. I mean, there's just a whole sustainability with this retrofit side of it that people don't think about too.
Yeah, it's really funny. And like I said, I was doing retrofits long before Roof Hugger. I worked here, and the way I did them, I tore everything off. Literally would tear things off. The old insulation, the old metal, everything was going somewhere. We all know where. And then, of course, being that we're in Tampa, Florida, every afternoon we had to worry about the rain. So, I mean, what a product to be able to save a tear off, be able to protect the operation underneath without tearing anything off, being able to have that cavity to add our value to, or just ventilate it. Either way, you're saving energy of the building.
And talk a little bit about, because you just mentioned a little bit being in Tampa. I mean, wind uplift, everything. So as you're talking about strengthening the purlins, talk a little bit about how all of this works with wind uplift standards and testing.
There's a very interesting thing that has happened, and recently we've been exploring it a little bit, and that is that our buildings that have been retrofitted are surviving storm events that are, in many cases, significantly beyond their design. And we've identified what is going on. And what seems to be the case is that when the roof hugger goes down as a notch purlin over the existing roof panel, and it's clamping that old roof panel down, and we're putting a new roof on top of it, that old roof panel is locked in place by the roof hugger. It can't come off. You couldn't tear it off with a crane. So what seems to be happening is there's a load sharing between the new roof and the old roof. So even though we may be designing the new roof for 155 miles an hour, these buildings are surviving events that are north of 180 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour that you would not think they would survive. And there's an additional benefit here that we haven't fully identified yet, but there's no question it's happening. And so we've had, building survived a typhoon in Guam that was one of the few buildings remaining standing after a giant typhoon went through. The hurricanes in the Virgin Islands and a lot of the coastal areas, some military bases in the Panhandle that the retrofitted buildings are among the few that survive incredibly strong storm events. So there's a lot going on with these systems that is yet to be learned. So,
and you have, there are a lot of metal buildings in the islands and throughout.
Over
everywhere. So
20. What do we figure? 20 billion square feet existing and growing every year. It is. In fact, we have another podcast that you all should listen to. We're going to talk a little bit about that on Metal Coffee Shop, talk about the growth of metal and what's all happening out there. So, okay, this has been, so interesting. Every time I think I kind of really have been involved with you guys for a long time, and then we have this kind of conversation, I'm like, I know nothing. This is really amazing stuff. And I think I'm mostly intrigued, and I kind of want to end this podcast with this thought, is that you are still learning everything Roof Hugger can do when it comes to the performance of the building. Because when you just said that about the wind uplift, like we're putting this together and load sharing and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about where you're going with your testing and, some of the thoughts that you have out there to continue this testing, working with engineers and finding some of these other benefits that are continuing to show. Let's start with you, Del. Well, that's always been our strong suit, I think, is that early on, we knew we were making the buildings stronger. We knew we were making them better. But when you go out to your peers in the industry, when we go out to the MVCIs or the Butlers and the Varco Prudens and the all those guys, they don't care what I think. They want to know what we can defend in court if we have to with test data. They have the liability. They have the roof. We just sell structure. And so early on, we identified that we needed to really take that bull by the horns and test, and retest. So we've done E1592 testing, UL 580 testing, factory mutual testing, base testing, diaphragm testing. Of course, the combinations of existing and new panels is endless. So we try to pick the majors and deal with those. And so in terms of industry credentials, nobody exceeds us in our knowledge of retrofit systems or our test data, hands down. We've just made that commitment, and we'll continue to do that as we see other opportunities.
I love it. DJ, looking to the future, you are the future. Looking to the future, the testing, talk a little bit about some of your vision on continuing that.
So as Dale said, the credibility that we have on our testing, one thing that keeps us going in our testing, not every test goes the way you think it's going to, right? So some come out and you go, oh my God, we're horrible. What do we need to do? We let's start working with, maybe a different gauge steel or this or that, or do we need to put an arm on a part? So it never stops, right? And even as we look through, the files and files and files of testing that we've done, we'll come up to a job and go, okay, here's the oh man, you know what? I think if we do this, we might be better. We might be able to save a customer money on additional framing, reinforcement. So that never stops. And I think that's part of the fun of it, right? Is not just sit back and go, okay, we're good and beat our chest. As Dale said, you got to show it. So,
what DJ said is important here. We have probably learned more from our test failures than we ever did out of our successes. Why did that part fail? And what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again? So that's really been so important in our designs and in our performance, actual field performance.
Yeah. I love it. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much. This is inspirational and a great way to go into 2026, knowing what you're doing for the strength of our metal buildings out there and just continuing to bring it on. So thank you so much for being part of this Roofing Road Trips.
Yeah, well, we're not going to quit hugging roofs for a long time, so we're good.
Okay, I like it. That is great. Thank you all for watching. This is just such great stuff. Learn more about Roof Hugger on their directory on Roofers Coffee Shop. Make it part of your business. Metal is hot. I'm telling you what, you need to be involved with this. So,
and Heidi, thank you for allowing us to come on. And, we redid our website last year, I think, a year ago. So it's filled with information. Go check it out.
Check it out. I tell you what, it's beautiful. And it's such great information and everything we talked about today with the testing and everything, it's all there. So Check it out. Check out all of our podcasts under the RLW Read, Listen, Watch navigation. Be sure to subscribe and set those notifications so you don't miss a single episode. We'll be seeing you next time on Roofing Road Trips.
If you've enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on every roofing adventure. Make sure to visit RoofersCoffeeShop.com to learn more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next roofing road trip.